Everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani, and thanks for joining us tonight. We have a lot to get into. The Pitt Panthers, can they complete the mission and get to the ACC championship game? Also, the Penguins coming off a shutout. Casey DeSmith, is he the new #1? What's the goaltending situation like, and should Kessel play with Crosby? We'll get into that. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Steelers, who were victorious in a big way. The number was 52 this week, 52 on Thursday night. The Steelers put on the board. Pitt put on 52 yesterday, and the Steelers now look to be one of the teams once again to beat in the AFC. Let's talk about it. Here's your panel, left to right. We have Jason Mackey, beat writer for the Pittsburgh Penguins on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. In the middle, it's Mark Kaboly, who covers the Steelers for The Athletic. And to the right, Mr. Will Graves, who does everything for the Associated Press. You name it, he does it. So we're here talking about the Steelers to start with, and Mark, I'll start with you. This team looks very impressive right now. It also looks like a team that kind of controls its own destiny to get a bye, unless they lose to the teams that they've lost to in the past, and that's been a problem. So where are they, and how good are they right now in the AFC? Where do they slot?
Well, I think they're in a good position, obviously, at 6-2-1. But I'm a little bit hesitant to say that they're the favorite in the AFC to even get that bye week, because I look at that schedule, and I'm not a big fan of looking ahead to schedules because things can change, but just the sheer travel associated with Jacksonville and Oakland and Denver and New Orleans. They're going on the road for 4 pretty significant road trips in a span of like 35 days, and you sprinkle in the Chargers and the Patriots here. I'm still need to see a little bit more before I'm going to say they're going to overtake a team like the Patriots. I think they're pretty settled into that AFC North title right now, but I think they're playing extremely well, and I think what you have to like what you see with the team, obviously offense, but that defense has finally put together a great performance, and I call that great performance against the Carolina Panthers, a team that has a very, very good offense. I think it will be very critical moving forward right now, but I'm still just a little hesitant just because of the travel and the teams. I mean, we got December 23rd against the New Orleans Saints, too. When was the last time the Steelers won in Oakland? They always struggle.
Yeah, but this is a dog team.
I understand that, but in the past, Steelers on the road with sub-500 teams, we know that stat. So I'm not quite sure if this team will fall into that category. I'm just holding off a little bit. I think they were definitely one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the AFC, but I still need to see a little more.
For me, the most impressive thing about Thursday night was Randy Fichtner and the game that he called. You know, I liked Todd Haley. I thought Todd Haley did a lot of good things for Ben Roethlisberger's career for that offense. But at the end of the day, they were not scoring in the red zone. They're, 20 to 28 touchdowns now, I think, and in their last 28 red zone opportunities, 20 touchdowns. They're scoring more points. They're on pace to score more points than they have in franchise history. That is what translates on the road these days. That's what I think can win games in November and December. And so I like them to get that #2 spot. Because part of the problem is, you saw what happened with the Pats today. I mean, they basically they get crushed today, but they still have a massive lead in their division. They don't have to be all out all the time. I think the Steelers are going to be pressed a little bit to prove that what happened early in the season was an anomaly, and I think they're going to be in that 11 to 12 win range, which should get them the #2 seed in the AFC.
I absolutely think they're one of the top 2 teams in the AFC. I probably wouldn't have said that 4 or 5 weeks ago, but the way the defense is kind of rounded into form, getting after the quarterback. I love what the defensive line's been doing. Good enough in coverage. They're there. The sort of stride that this offense has found, if clean bill of health, if Vance McDonald is around producing the way he is, I mean, there's obviously no other questions at any of the other skill positions. I mean, you can play those games at home, on the road, on Mars. I don't really care. I mean, these guys seem to be hitting their stride at the right time. I don't, honestly, with what New England did today and some other stuff I've seen out of the top few teams, I don't know if they're not the best team in the AFC if they keep playing like this.
2 other things really impressed me. #1, Chris Boswell, 7 for 7, plus a 50-yard field goal. And #2, only 1 penalty for a team that led the NFL in penalties, and that came in scrub time. So those are encouraging signs as well. Steelers-Jacksonville, that's a 1 o'clock game. Just remember, it's flexed here. We'll have it on KDKA-TV. So I want to ask you about Le'Veon Bell. Will Graves, will start with you. Now, it's pretty much, we're going to get to the end of this. The final deadline is here, and we could mercifully stop talking about this topic, although the question would be, do you see any chance at the last second, because he's changed his mind a few times throughout this process, do you see any chance of him changing his mind and staying here and coming in by Tuesday at 4 o'clock, Will?
Pop, I mean, we've been talking about this for, what, 15, 18 months, since the first time he got franchise tagged. I'm a big Le'Veon guy. He has done a horrible job sort of getting the message across on what this whole thing is supposed to be about. I think if you take him at his word at this point, it's your word that's at risk, not so much his. I think his credibility, no offense, is not what it was when you look at some of the things that he said he's going to do and the things that haven't happened. And at the end of the day, I thought at the beginning of the time this was supposed to be about what his value was. He viewed himself as this special player, and I think he is a hell of a player. He thinks he's more valuable than any other back in the league, and I'm trying to figure out how in the world he's going to make more money by not playing football than he had if he did play football. And I'll be relieved at 4:01 on Tuesday when there's some resolution, and I imagine that he's just not going to show up at this point.
He's not coming back. I mean, there's no way he's coming back, nor he should at this point in the calendar right now, because that's a hypothetical situation here, and I know Mike Tomlin doesn't deal in hypotheticals, so it's lucky he's not here right now, but I will. What if Connor gets hurt? Say Connor gets hurt 2 weeks before the end of the season. Now you have a big playoff run still with Le'Veon Bell. He potentially has to play 4 playoff games. You know how much they get paid in the playoffs? $27,000, $27,000, $50,000, and $100,000 if they win the Super Bowl. So you're saying this guy is going to pay about $200,000 to play 4 extra games to add on to, what, $4 more million if he comes in there? It makes no mathematical sense why he would come in at this point right now. So that's why he's not coming in.
Yeah, but I mean, skipping out on $14 million doesn't make guaranteed
but they got
dollars
to
doesn't
that
make
point,
mathematical
Graves,
sense either.
They got to that point by making bad decisions. It was supposed to be week 1, Gurley screwed that up. It was supposed to be the bye, but who knows who screwed that up. After the trading deadline, that changed. Then it keeps changing because of different issues. You get to this point right now when there's only 6 games, 7 games with a potential of 4 more. You really want to pay $6.2 million of your Le'Veon Bell to potentially get hurt? That's why he's not coming in. I mean, do you want a guy on that team that doesn't want to play in the playoff games because he's getting paid $27,000 and might get hurt?
How about if he gets started playing basketball, Jason, at the LA, and all of a sudden I've seen that happen with guys
ridiculous, too. Man. Absolutely ridiculous. And I'm with Mark on that last point. I think it's a blessing in disguise that he's not going to be around the Steelers. Goodbye. Stay away, man. I mean, whatever the Steelers have going on right now, keep it going. I worry that him coming back, before all this stuff and before what Mark just said, when it was even sort of a remote possibility that he would be back around the Steelers, what that would do to team chemistry. I mean, we saw it with the Penguins last year. You're on a roll and they bring in Derek Brassard. Obviously, it's not on the same sort of level, but when you have something good like this going on, just ride it out. I'm perfectly happy to see him stay away. I think the team will be better for it. I know he's a great running back on the field. He'll make a lot of money next year, probably not what he thought he was going to make, but I think the Steelers will be just fine.
All right, later in the program, I asked these guys where they think Le'Veon Bell will end up next year. By the way, they may not want him here now, Jason, but if something happens long-term to Connor, I agree with what Mark is saying, that all of a sudden they're really exposed. So, but they can't control that. That's the issue right now. By the way, there was a tweet that Le'Veon, and this was what happens when you keep a trail of 2012, this was his quote on Twitter. "If you play this game for money and or fame, then you're playing for the wrong reason. I love this game first and then everything else." That's what he tweeted back in 2012. All right.
Oops.
Yes, the venue is a critical part of every fan experience. It's upside down. And if you're a fan of luxury cars, then you have to visit the all-new Audi Pittsburgh in the Strip District. I did recently. I was blown away by this 4-story world-class showroom, and the Audi vehicles inside are equally impressive. Stop by now for special grand opening offers only at the all-new Audi Pittsburgh from number 1 Cochran and sister store Audi Washington. Penguins talk when we come back. The number 1 Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by number 1 Cochran. Go one better. And by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.